We work with people who have been in the business of business for 20, 30, 40 years. There is a certain value to sitting and listening with curiosity and not just walking in as the technology partner and saying, hey, time to disrupt and blow it all up, and this is how things go. And by listening and understanding why they think a certain way and what they're really trying to accomplish, you can ultimately create a better tech-oriented solution.
Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today I had the real pleasure of speaking with Daniel Anstandig, CEO of Futuri Media, a leading AI-driven platform that he founded here in Cleveland in 2009, enabling companies to build and monetize engaged audiences. Today, Futuri's sales, content, and audience technology serves over 7,000 media brands across 22 countries, supported by a bold and passionate team honored on the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest-growing companies for 9 years over. Daniel personally has advised the Wall Street Journal, CBS News, Clear Channel R&D, the White House Commission on Remembrance, Glencoe-McGraw Hill, and various broadcasting companies in the USA, Canada, and Europe on digital audience and revenue growth strategies. And his research and editorials on radio and interactive media have been published in the Wall Street Journal, Billboard, and numerous other trade publications. A proud two-time recipient of the Edison Research's 30 Under 30 Award, Daniel has also been recognized by Entrepreneur magazine for his work as a young entrepreneur. Outside of Futuri, Dan has developed 20-plus patents in audio, podcasting, AI, and broadcast technology, co-founded SparkTrade.io to democratize AI-powered investment insights, offering real-time buy and sell signals to nearly 9,000 investors daily. He serves on the board of directors for Teaching Cleveland, part of Teaching Place, a nonprofit focused on social and civic engagement and education, as well as Boxcast, the global leader in live streaming and remote mix technology, whose story we actually heard more about from Gordon Daly, Boxcast's founder and CEO, on episode 26 of Lay of the Land. As you'll hear, Dan is very clear and concise in his thinking, and it was awesome to listen to his reflections on the evolution of media, curation in an age of information overload, the future of content creation, life lessons from music that apply to entrepreneurship, building entrepreneurial teams, moving from Cleveland to Austin and reflections on Cleveland, the importance of creating community and building trust, and a whole lot more. So please enjoy this insightful conversation with Daniel Anstandig. Lay of the Land is brought to you and is proudly sponsored by Roundstone Insurance. Headquartered in Rocky River, Ohio, Roundstone shares Lay of the Land's same passion for bold ideas and lasting impact from our community's entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders. Since 2005, Roundstone has pioneered a self-funded captive health insurance model that delivers robust savings for small and medium-sized businesses. They are part of the solution to rising healthcare costs, helping employers offer affordable, high-quality care while driving job creation and economic growth throughout Northeast Ohio. Like many of the voices featured on Lay of the Land, including Roundstone's founder and CEO Mike Schroeder, Roundstone believes entrepreneurship, innovation, and community to be the cornerstones of progress. To learn more about how Roundstone is transforming employee health benefits by empowering employers to save thousands in per employee per year healthcare costs, please visit RoundstoneInsurance.com. Roundstone Insurance, built for entrepreneurs, backed by innovation, committed to Cleveland. I'll divulge that this first question is a direct one from Lee Zappis, who I may reference a few times here, but it felt like a fun one to start with, just to get us going. What was it like getting invited to attend church with Stevie Wonder?
I love that you want to start there. Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite clients of all times at Futuri is KJLH. Stevie Wonder's radio station based in Los Angeles. Stevie Wonder in the 1970s wanted to be a DJ. And when you're Stevie Wonder and you want to be a DJ, you don't just become a DJ, you buy a radio station. And you don't just do it in any market, you do it in the second largest market in the world and the largest media market in the world, Los Angeles. So he bought KJLH, which stands for Kindness, Joy, Love, and Happiness. What's not to love about this? And when I was first installing the KJLH mobile apps we launched a mobile app with KJLH, and we brought our Topic Pulse technology to KJLH, which is a system that can observe or scan what's happening on X, Instagram, Facebook, and 250,000 news sources, and it can show what's trending in a local market. So his station and the people who work on the air monitor what's trending in LA and what's trending with their audience overall. And they use that to figure out what they're going to talk about on air or on their social channels and so on. Anyway, they were very gracious. And in the middle of my first install with them, and when I got to know them, I happened to be staying over a weekend, and I asked if anybody had a good church that I could go to. I was a bit tongue in cheek about it, actually, because I didn't expect anybody to be so hospitable. But I was invited to Stevie's church, and West Angeles church. And by the way, it lives up to every reputation. It's a beautiful place. The music is soulful and out of this world, and the message was great. So we've had a wonderful partnership with Stevie and with the KJLH team. And actually, Karen Slade, who is the general manager of KJLH, she's just retiring this year. She's been there since 1991, but she is a Clevelander and went from Cleveland to Los Angeles many years ago to help run the station. And yes, they're just amazing people.
That's so cool. Well, I feel like, out of the gate here, we could probably do a two-part podcast just to cover the breadth of all the endeavors that you've undergone and kind of the history of your career. But with that in mind, how would you articulate the arc and trajectory of your career? And what have been the themes and patterns that have motivated you and inspired you along the way?
Well, I've always been entrepreneurial. I mean, as far back as I can remember as a kid, I was always interested in business and marketing and product development and technology for sure, and media and originally broadcast media and television and radio, but then social media and mobile technology and so on. The first business that I'll start here. I actually started to work in media at a local radio station when I was 9 years old. That was the first job that I had. And I worked at Ray Somich's WELW, now WDLW in Willoughby, Ohio, and family-owned radio station. Very, very cool people, and have been super, super invested in the Cleveland market and business community for many years, and have helped many local businesses grow over many years. They gave me kind of my first break. I was calling everybody
9 years old. That is a first break.
Yes, I was calling everybody in Cleveland, in Cleveland radio and television, saying, I'll do anything. I'll mop the floors. I will clean the toilets. I just want to come in and learn. And Ray and his family were very kind to me. I also I worked at a number of other radio and TV stations, but my first real entrepreneurial venture was when I was 14. I started a streaming advertising company that was really all about getting into the internet radio advertising business, internet audio, ad insertion. And I sold that business when I was 18 and went to work for I went to work as an in-house entrepreneur for digital endeavors inside of traditional media companies. So I worked for Wall Street Journal Digital, CBS Television, iHeartRadio, all kind of on that digital entrepreneurship front. How can we build new media businesses in legacy media companies? And that led to starting Futuri. When I was 24 years old, I started Futuri. Today, we're coming up on 15 years in business. We have over 7,000 media clients in 22 countries who use our technologies to either grow audience or to sell their audience, monetize their audience in terms of selling advertising. Also, about 5 years ago, I started SparkTrade, an AI-powered investment insights company that generates buy and sell signals using AI or using machine learning for investors and for institutional portfolio managers. And I've also been an advisor for media and tech executives on strategy for a number of years, and have had the opportunity and privilege to serve on a number of boards, including nonprofit boards, including one here in Cleveland, Teaching Place, which is a nonprofit that is specifically focused on social and civic engagement in the Cleveland area. And Boxcast, a global leader in live streaming and remote mix technology that's based in Cleveland. So I've had I've been blessed to have some amazing mentors and wonderful opportunities in Cleveland. I have a little bit of a different perspective than most of your lay of the land guests, though.
Yeah.
Because I moved to Austin, Texas about a year ago.
Right. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I was based in Cleveland since I was a kid. I grew up in Beechwood. I went to John Carroll University, and so I am a huge Cleveland fan and Cleveland advocate. During COVID, I really looked at where it strategically made sense for our company to grow and for us to have a presence. And Austin, Texas, is a bright, shining light on the map every time you think about technology growth and scaling a company or companies like ours. And so I relocated to Austin about a year ago, and we have been recruiting and developing our Austin contingent. And so I have a little bit of a different perspective on the Cleveland market. I love it. There's a wonderful place in my heart for Cleveland. I do have a lot of ideas about what Cleveland could have done, and I've been fairly outspoken about it even over the years about what Cleveland could do to grow its technology culture and grow its startup culture. But now I have an even more, I think, stark contrast in my mind between Cleveland and Austin or Cleveland and elsewhere, because I've now lived and been kind of immersed in the Austin tech culture for a bit. And so I probably am coming to the podcast with a little bit of a different mindset.
Yeah. Well, there are many threads to pull on there, but let's start there. What is the unvarnished feelings and opinions that you have about what those differences are in the experiences that you've had in Cleveland and Austin and elsewhere?
Well, I'll tell you this. Cleveland has some incredible people. It has incredible depth, depending on the type of business you are building. If you're in healthcare innovation, or if you have medical expertise and you're developing something, as a new product or a company, that really pulls on research partnerships, there is a tremendous built-in ecosystem in Cleveland. There's also manufacturing DNA, of course. I mean, there's, not just traditional manufacturing, but I mean, there is a real understanding in the Cleveland market and Akron, Canton about, how to manufacture all types of goods. And so there is a unique combination of digital innovation and physical engineering expertise that I think regularly shows up in the types of guests who you have on your podcast. There's also, of course, a kind of a cool business community in Cleveland where anybody you want to meet, the size of the market, everybody's very accessible. It's very Midwest friendly. You want to get a meeting with a CEO or a major company based in Cleveland, the network is strong. People truly, sincerely want to help each other. And, there's kind of this brotherhood, sisterhood that comes through in Cleveland. Here's what is different, though, having now a bit more experience. And over the years that I lived in Cleveland, especially the last, 15 to 20 years, I was traveling a lot, maybe half of every month or so, traveling a lot to build our business in a lot of other, markets, and some very famous tech-friendly markets in Silicon Valley and Southern California and so on. But there's a difference. The level of risk capital is different in Cleveland. There's just, I think there's an opportunity to build more venture capital, more risk capital in the Cleveland market. There are some great angel investors. There's a growing network of angel investors in Cleveland that could be nurtured and cultivated even more. The biggest thing is the talent pipeline. There are really smart people who come from around the world to study and learn in Cleveland, but then we lose them. And
Yeah.
I think there's a tremendous opportunity for businesses in Cleveland, and this is part of what I'm really passionate about with teaching Cleveland and teaching place, is that when you love the community and you love where you're at, you do think differently about building for the long term there, and you think differently about working together across different types of businesses and industries to keep that talent pipeline in the market, have stronger internship programs, connecting students into local startups. What John Carroll is doing with their entrepreneurship program, there is just fantastic. We need more and more of that in Cleveland to keep that kind of modern innovation and to really, frankly, to change the narrative for Cleveland. So I say all that with love in my heart for Cleveland. Cleveland could do a much better job creating business incentives, economic incentives to move early stage companies to the market and repurpose or rethink some of the incredible real estate that we have and office space that we have across the Cleveland market. For Futuri and for 721 Investment Systems and Spark Trade, the companies that I'm involved in, what it came down to for us is that we're but one of many different types of technology companies in Cleveland. And we really just had to make a decision about where the company would be based for long-term network into the media and technology markets. And so while we still have a huge contingent in Cleveland, a lot of people who work for Futuri are in Cleveland, we were hiring more and more outside of Cleveland. And it came down to just making a long-term decision for the company. But at the same time, I still believe that Cleveland has a remarkable and unique story, and there are a lot of ways that local investors and entrepreneurs can build a whole new generation, a whole new narrative, and you're a huge part of that too. And what you're doing with the Ohio Fund, I think, is really remarkable and important.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that. I mean, a lot of your assessment there resonates quite deeply with me in the spirit of where this podcast even came from in the first place. You know, my path to Cleveland was one via Venture for America, which was from a recognition of the brain drain that cities like Cleveland have and the young person retention challenge and what it takes to keep those people who are from those cities in those cities. And from my perspective, you know, why I love doing this podcast beyond getting to individually, you know, meet people like yourself is the storytelling part, right? Like I found if you were a young person that wanted to start a company in Cleveland, but you didn't know who in your community had achieved success at building something that you might aspire to one day, then you would be further inclined to go to San Francisco or New York or Boston, where you knew for sure, or Austin, right? Where that stuff is happening. And so I thought the opportunity was in, you know, telling the stories of Cleveland entrepreneurs, where, you know, you mentioned kind of the warmth and kindness of people here. With that, there's a humility, and so we're not great about celebrating. To me, what's very inspirational and aspirational about what people have achieved, the excellence, the success, and it's not, you don't even need to brag. It's just, you know, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's a great openness to Cleveland and a Midwest charm that I think Cleveland has uniquely. And there are lots of businesses that are on their second generation or third generation mixed, you know, sitting in office space right next to brand new startups. So there's something really amazing about that. And it's a narrative that is, frankly, I think, under-celebrated and not well told. So, you know, what you're doing is shining a light on that for Cleveland. And I think that, you know, that's exactly what the market needs. And also economic incentives and, thinking about the network and all of that, you know, help and the brain drain and so on. You know, all of those things, it's a rising tide, you know, that raises all ships, as they say.
Yeah. So with regards to your own entrepreneurial journey, you know, you mentioned the age at which you got started, which to me is quite remarkable. I feel you had a certain clairvoyance about, you know, where the world was going as it related to media, what media was, where media was going. Where did that intuition about things come from, and what was interesting to you about media? You know, of all the things you could have been interested in, what kind of drew you to that space at that time?
Well, what's always been interesting to me about media is that really high functioning cultures and civilizations have one great thing in common. They have extraordinary communication. And I'm not talking about extraordinary mainstream media brands. I'm talking about extraordinary communication, open sharing of information, ability to exchange perspectives, to give people intelligence, unearned intelligence, you know, that they can learn and explore without having to go get that experience hands-on on their own. And media for me has always been a huge part of that. The media industry has changed, and it's frankly exploded since I started working in it. You know, when I was a kid, media would be known as TV, radio, and newspaper. And now there are, you know, huge platforms, extraordinary platforms that are part of the media industry. And the largest media companies now are Google and, you know, YouTube and Spotify and Microsoft. And so the tech media convergence, it used to be called, you know, 15 years ago. Today, tech companies and media companies are really just about interchangeable. If you're in media, you are a technology company, and vice versa. If you're a big one, if you're a high performing one. And so I've always been fascinated by that. There's a I have almost a sense of, it can sound polarizing to say this, but a sense of patriotism about media, and that's not an allegiance to any particular, party, etc. That's just a kind of I think, a mindset that it's just patriotic to be in favor of exchanging ideas, communication, helping businesses to grow by getting the word out about them, everything that media stands for, and open exchange of content, intelligence, information, ideas. That's always been super enticing to me. From a tech perspective, what I've always loved is that we're at an age where if you can imagine it, and if you have the right idea, you can build it. You can develop things so much faster and so much more effectively today than you ever could have, in generations before us. And so, the entrepreneurial culture, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial culture. And I think the entrepreneurial culture of our company has made it a fun place to work, because in 16 years at Futuri, I've experienced 16 different versions of the company. Futuri 2024 was very different from Futuri 2014, and very different from Futuri 2020, and so on. And I have no doubt that this year and 5 years from now and 10 years from now, it'll continue to grow and pivot and change. And that's kind of what I like about the tech industry and the media industry, because that's true of most companies in both sectors.
Right. Like what new media is changes every year as well. Just like
exactly.
It's the reality and pace of how fast all this is moving. What were you attuned to when you started Futuri? I guess what was the new media of that period of time, and what was your intuition about what the opportunity might be?
Well, the big founding question of the company was, what if TV and radio were invented after the internet? So what if the internet came first and then TV and radio were created later? And the bottom line is that TV and radio would think very differently about building and monetizing an audience. The building an audience would be done across many different platforms, not just getting people to go tune into a broadcast linear signal. You would create on-demand content. You'd be available in many different places, and monetizing an audience would certainly be done in a different way too. You wouldn't just depend on commercial spot advertising. You would have many different programs or ways to effectively help local businesses grow. So that was the founding question for the company. Now the company has grown and I would say become much more dynamic about asking broader questions beyond just broadcast media. If we started by asking the question, how would TV and radio be different if they came after the internet? Now, I think the question is, how would we leverage any technology today to build and monetize an audience? And there are lots of different companies that build and monetize audiences. There are digital publishers. There are authors and publishers for books that think differently about using AI or using media. Today, about 5 years ago, we brought AI voices to the market, where we're helping to create more local content and to create more audio content using AI and get content out faster, build audiences more effectively. So there's maybe a different set of fundamental questions that as a company we answer today, but the spirit is still essentially the same. We're still looking for ways to leverage technology to be more efficient and to grow audiences and help to monetize them.
In the different iterations of Futuri as it's evolved over the life cycle of the company, were there a particular set of fundamental questions tied to each chapter that were most interesting to you?
Well, for sure. I feel like I get a new MBA every year.
Right.
And I'm sure many entrepreneurs can relate to this. I'm sure you can relate to this. Every year is feels a little different. But usually you're really getting back to the same fundamental issues. For us, I think what we've consistently come back to, what's kind of always been the same, is we always come back to the jobs to be done methodology. If you're familiar with Clayton Christensen and jobs to be done, his mindset was always that people don't just buy a product, people hire a product to do a job for them. And the more that you can understand exactly what that job to be done is, the more you have a clear North Star for innovation. You know exactly what you're creating and who you're creating it for. And there's this fundamental idea in jobs to be done that you're on the right one when you come up with something that existed when Moses and Abraham were here. It's not something that just started in the last 50 or 100 years. So, help me to build an audience, help me to monetize my audience. That's been around for thousands of years. It looks a little different. Now it might be mobile, it might be broadcast, it might be on demand, it might be YouTube video. Certainly the pandemic changed how a lot of people consume content and how we even, experience advertising. But the fundamental job to be done has not changed. And I think that's so I guess that's a long way of saying the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're always focused on product market fit and, what is the job to be done and how do we use technology to accomplish that job in the most efficient way possible.
How would you describe the company today and where it is?
I would describe Futuri as an entrepreneurial group of approximately 150 people who are helping 7,000 media companies in 22 countries to build audience and monetize that audience. And we are today we're far more dynamic than we ever have been. We started as a bootstrapped angel-funded company. Lee Zappis and Rich Bongiorno were our early angel investors. And I've, by the way, love Lee Zappis and Rich Bongiorno. They helped us to get our company started and have been very helpful and gracious mentors over the years. And about 5 years ago, we brought private equity into our business, and Lee and Rich and I worked together along with our CFO, Marty Chagrin, and now our private equity partners, JP Morgan, High Vista, Mill Pond Equity Partners is our management partner. We just have always been blessed with, I think, really wonderful mentors and contributors at a high level in our company who have helped to build out that entrepreneurial culture. So Futuri is growing in new and interesting directions today. One thing that's different over the last year that I don't know that we could have said 10 years ago we would be doing this. We just launched the world's first AI-powered emergency broadcast system. We're doing it through a partnership with the state of Florida, the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and the University of Florida. And we're bringing this now to other states where we can use AI to automatically gather information from the state control center, translate it into local languages, and distribute it on multiple platforms to citizens across the state. A little bit different in terms of how to build an audience, if that's the job to be done. It's kind of building an audience in a critical scenario, in a life-dependent and public safety-oriented scenario. But a good example of how when you have the right job to be done and the right kind of fundamental questions for the company, you start to grow in a lot of other new, interesting directions.
What have you learned from Lee Zappis?
Lee is like an idea machine. Lee is creative. He can sit with a founder, relate to them, understand them. One thing that I love about Lee, I have to tell you a quick story about Lee Zappis. Lee was running his family's broadcast media company when I was growing up. And so I grew up listening to his radio stations. And when I was 15, I was running my first startup. And I flew to Las Vegas to a broadcast conference, a major broadcast conference with 200,000 attendees. I don't know are we past the statute of limitations? How did my dad let me go to Vegas alone? It was my parents were really pretty encouraging, pretty permissive. So they let me go to Vegas alone. My dad let me go there, and I ran into Lee Zappis on the convention floor at the Vegas Convention Center. Which, have you been there? It's like a county. It's a zip code of its own. It's huge. And I ran into Lee, and he was at that moment, what he cared about was, how are you? What are you doing here? How can I help you? It was very personal. He's always been interested in business. Of course, he's a businessman, a solid and legendary Cleveland businessman. But he focuses on people first, and that's really what I've learned most from Lee. His business partner and longtime friend and CFO, Rich Bongiorno, is very much the same way. Rich is also people person first. Both of them, in working together at Futuri, have always encouraged me to kind of have that same mindset. Anyway, back to Lee and being people first in Vegas. He was like, "So wait a second, you're here alone? You're is anybody else here with you? You're 15. We're in Vegas. What could go wrong?" And he was like, "Listen, I'm going to give you my hotel room number. I'm going to give you my phone number. Here are 3 ways to reach me. If you can't reach me, here are people you can reach back at home. Whatever you need, we're here for you. Whatever you need." And the way that he tells the story is that I slowly disappeared into the crowd as he walked away. But I remember this meeting, and so does he, because this was like it was a moment where I think he took me under his wing in a certain way, and he still is that same way today, many years later. That's who Lee is, and that's who Rich is. And that's that their mentoring has changed my life.
15 in Vegas. That's pretty good.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. So one thing I'm curious about is, to the degree that you as the CEO can influence what the culture of your organization is and instill this kind of entrepreneurial spirit into it, that you have to constantly, evolve through multiple iterations as the technology that you're working with and utilizing evolves in parallel. Is there a certain tension that arises from your customers who maybe aren't as quick to adapt to the changing environment? And how do you counsel, work with kind of legacy media institutions to help them kind of broach the exponential rate at which things are changing all the time?
Well, I'll say first that we love our customers. That's the first step. I mean, we work with legacy media companies, and we work with brand new startups that are podcasters, YouTube channels. We work with state government on Beacon. We work with publishers and digital publishers. So there are a lot of different types of media companies today compared to the types of media companies that existed when we started Futuri. Even as I think about SparkTrade, we work with institutional portfolio managers. We work with people who have been in the business of business, for 20, 30, 40 years. There is a certain value to sitting and listening with curiosity, and not just walking in as the technology partner and saying, "Hey, time to disrupt and blow it all up, and this is how things go." And by listening and understanding why they think a certain way and what they're really trying to accomplish, you can ultimately create a better tech-oriented solution. So there's a certain amount to be said for customer intimacy. If you think about kind of the 3 legs of diversification for any company, being product innovation, customer intimacy, or operational efficiency, and you can only pick one. Over the years, we have really had a dilemma about picking product innovation, which would be like Apple or Tesla, versus customer intimacy, which would be more like IBM, versus operational efficiency, which would be more like Amazon or McDonald's. We do everything at a lower cost and faster. Logistics live there. And the reason for our dilemma between product innovation and customer intimacy is that I think product innovation comes from a super empathic understanding of the customer. So to answer your question about, dealing with more legacy oriented customers, we look forward to it. There are customers and partners who have been in the media business for 100 years. And then we have customers who have been in the media business for 100 days. And we learn something from both, and we create technology that helps both of them in different ways. And so I think that's it's a great position to be in when you can walk in without judgment and just total curiosity. That's kind of step one. And that is a cultural thing. You build that by really focusing on who you recruit into your company and how you incentivize people.
So you had used a phrase earlier, unearned intelligence, that resonates a bit, but also feels like a euphemism of sorts for the sheer quantity of information that we get today. And I'm curious, at what point on the spectrum of unearned intelligence, can you like distill earned wisdom? How do you think about curation of information, especially as the quantity of media has just increased so much and seemingly will just continue to increase, probably even at a greater velocity?
Well, I mean, that is true. We're going to have more media, more content, more information than ever. Curation is a job to be done in itself that has existed forever. I think topic expertise and authority matter more than ever now. But here's what I love about the world that we live in today. When there is recently, a few weeks ago, there was a unfortunate incident at Dulles Airport. There was a plane and helicopter collision. Okay, well, in addition to news coverage that we would traditionally understand as, capital J journalism about the whole situation, we also saw experienced pilots on their own YouTube channels analyzing it and talking about it, having a conversation with their audience in a new and different, trusted way. We saw podcasters who, were getting interviews and having conversations with people about different aspects or angles related to that whole incident. I think there is more information. You can choose this is a buyer's market from a content perspective. You can choose what type of information you want and who you want to consume it from. And so, I think that's great. Let's celebrate that. There is going to be more and more a need for ways to curate content and organize and retrieve information. No doubt AI is a huge part of that. We all seem to be using ChatGPT more than ever as our second brain. And it couldn't have come at a better time. We were all overwhelmed with constant barrage of information. But I see that as way more an opportunity than a problem.
Of the thousands of companies that you've now worked with over the course of Futuri, what have been some of the most interesting or surprising and impactful ways that your products have changed how media companies operate?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I mean, I'll start with from a advertising, sales, and marketing perspective. We have a system called Topline that provides consumer intelligence and sales intelligence to local marketing experts, advertising sellers. And here's how I've seen Topline and our systems within Topline or features within Topline change local businesses. Now, instead of going from a media company or from a podcast and going out to an advertiser and pitching them on advertising with you, what I've seen is a complete change in that thought process to putting the customer first and helping to solve their problem. Walking in with information about the community or about their customer that they didn't know. So being able to say, we have consumer research that shows that when people are thinking about buying a car or when they're thinking about going to a local doctor, these are the things they're thinking about. These are the places they go for information. These are the key questions that they have. Here are some consumer insights that we have about our own audience that might change the way that I can help you grow your business by talking to them in a unique way. That's a very different conversation versus slinging an advertising package at somebody. So from an ad sales perspective, I would say that Topline's mission has been to change the world of ad sales into solving local business problems and helping local businesses to grow. And that's, that makes for a far more loyal and happy client, too. From an information perspective, our Topic Pulse system, which today, it had humble beginnings in 2011 from our little Rocky River office. We had a small little office in Rocky River that was at the time above a burger joint and below a Pilates studio. So it smelled like a restaurant and was noisy all day long, but it was fun. It was quirky and we had a blast. We had like 12 people working out of this office in Rocky River. And Topic Pulse initially was built to measure engagement of social media topics or of news reporting. How fast are people engaging with different topics on social media? And today it's turned into a predictive engine that looks at what's trending in a local market and can predict what's going to matter to a local audience. So it's fundamentally changed the newsrooms that it's involved in, and the news reporting and journalism that it's involved in. And even today, some of our podcast clients will say, look, I go to Topic Pulse first to understand what my audience cares about today, so I know what to talk about, or where to focus, or maybe have some ideas about where to engage on social. I feel like the way that we've been able to develop these types of technologies is like turning the lights on for our clients and giving them insights or ideas or a perspective that they didn't have before they started using our products, or using our systems. And once that happens, once we see that like bright-eyed moment where they're like, wow, okay, and now I get how this is helpful intelligence, how it changes how I can do my job, they never go back. Spark Trade, very same experience. When we're showing prediction scores or streams of buy and sell signals to an institutional portfolio manager, and they're putting it in their own paradigm and saying, okay, well, now I kind of see differently how I might trade around a certain position, or how I might use this intelligence to make a different decision today about where I'm going to focus my research or size my positions differently. That's very rewarding to us, because that's a way of kind of using intelligence and using technology to change the way that legacy businesses operate.
So as you were outlining the really kind of broad set of product offerings that you have, and the different aspects of the business that it affects, and really just different problem spaces, I was envisioning that there's a certain opportunity for you to proverbially eat your own dog food. And you mentioned this like turn the lights on analogy. I'm curious, were there any of those moments where you turn the lights on for yourself? And
many, many times. Well, I would say, first of all, that in many cases, we get so entrenched with our partners and our customers that sometimes it's hard, the lines even blur between us versus them. I mean, there are times where we're developing a solution. We take it so personally. We talk about our company culture being speed, passion, trust, and proactivity. And I see that all the time, every day. There are solutions that I've seen us build for our customers that we take so much pride in. We'll go we go try it ourselves and try building things on our own. We have certainly had scenarios where people who work at Futuri go off and start their own new media-oriented ventures. We've had new media-oriented ventures that come and fold into Futuri too. Yeah, I mean, yes, you have to eat your own dog food for sure. I always cringe when I say that.
It's not my favorite saying.
It's not not my favorite saying, but I believe in it. And yes, yeah, absolutely. We use our own systems all the time to figure out what we're talking about on our own social channels, to know what's trending with our own customers, to communicate with our own customers, to develop mobile apps and mobile technologies that we use in our own partnerships with other businesses and so on. So yes, it's an important tenet of Futuri.
If we were to theorize a bit about where the world is going, which is something I imagine you think about often, what do you envision that the future of media and entertainment looks like, and what is the role that you would like for Futuri to play within it?
Here's what I see happening in media in the next 12 to 24 months. We're going to see the amount of content, the volume of content, multiply itself. Today, if there are 100 pieces of content that are generated in an hour, in 24 months from now, there will be 300 or 400 pieces of content that are generated in that same period of time. We're just going to see explosive growth of content creation and of generative content. We're also going to see the creator economy and podcasters and substackers and journalists merge with broadcast media and mainstream media. I think we won't even think of the word influencer in the year 2030. We'll just think of influencers as part of the media. The media is a very large industry that includes YouTubers and podcasters and substackers and journalists who are independent, and broadcast media like TV, radio, cable, digital publishers, and so on. So I think we're going to see kind of a merger of all of those types of companies. We're going to see new monetization models beyond advertising. The content that you love, you'll probably be expected to subscribe to it and pay for it. You're going to see micro communities that continue to grow around specific interests. So you have a huge interest in, in cars. You're going to have even more unique niche micro communities that you can join related to the types of cars you love. You're a musician. I'm a drummer. I already know there are, micro communities of drummers, percussionists, songwriters, et cetera, that you can be a part of around the world. We're just going to see more and more of that. And so I think the bar that's going to be raised here from an audience building and from a monetization perspective is, if you are creating content, but you don't have a community for it, you might as well be using your garden hose in the ocean. Like, your energy is just dispersing everywhere. You have to build a community in addition to creating content. And that is what enables you to monetize your content. If you don't have a community, it's really hard to monetize it. So I think this is going to change the mindset around certain legacy media companies who look at themselves as, giant platforms that can just have megaphones. Yes, that's true, but they also have to create communities in order to monetize their audience ultimately in the future.
So somewhat notoriously, trust in institutions writ large has been eroded over time. And more anecdotally, to me, it feels like as that trust has waned from places that we have expected it to be historically, it's moved to where media is going, right? The podcasters, the independent storytellers, the people who have been able to build the communities. And I'm curious how you think about what it is to build trust in where media is going.
Radical transparency. Communicating about what you're reporting, why you're reporting it, what is it that made you curious about it, share information proactively, admit mistakes quickly. Of course, journalists are humans, so mistakes will be made, but be open about limitations and challenges. That's what I think from a journalism perspective. From a media perspective overall, actually having a community and hearing and addressing concerns from your audience and taking that feedback seriously, not doing double-blind research, but seriously having direct conversations with your audiences and making visible changes based on that input, that builds trust. That's meaningful communication. That's meaningful relationship. Demonstrating understanding, before acting. I have seen for many years, if we're just talking about news media, there have been studies for many years about trust in media. It's not a 2024 problem or 2025 problem that suddenly the public seems to have a different level of trust in media or in journalism. That's been eroding for years. We saw research. We did a study at Futuri with Smith Geiger, which is a major TV news research company. We did a study with them in 2021 where we asked all kinds of questions about broadcast journalism, news, the future of media. And at that time, one of the first boldest headlines from the study was, there's a major trust issue with news and journalism and reporting. So this has been here for a while. It's, by the way, speaking of jobs to be done that have been here for 5,000 years, this is one of them. But I think it's ultimately cured through transparency and through relationship and community and accountability too. When you have a community around your brand, boy, do you have a different level of accountability, to deliver and to make things right when you don't deliver. That's for sure. So does that make sense to you, or does that resonate with you too?
It certainly makes sense to me. With that in mind, having painted the picture of directionally maybe where media is going, I just want to revisit, how you think about what Futuri's role is in that future, and ultimately what success looks like. What does that mean to you? What is the impact that you are hoping to have?
So Futuri, our mission at Futuri is to be the number one technology partner, the most trusted technology partner for any type of media company building or monetizing an audience. And the definition of media company has changed many times, even in the 16 years that we've been in business. Where we started working primarily with broadcast radio and television, today we're working with radio, TV, digital publishers, podcasters, substackers, journalists, state government with public safety. So the media company definition has changed, but the need for building audience and monetizing that audience hasn't changed. And a lot of the ways that you think about going to market in both of those fronts, is a little, there may be nuance based on the platform, but that's still generally the same. So we're building the number one most trusted technology company for any media company, or really anybody that wants to build and monetize an audience. And there's a lot of media companies today. Virtually every company is a media company now. You're a media company doing what you're doing as a podcaster. There's, I think you could walk into most Fortune 500 companies and they would say, yeah, we are also, they also think about similar jobs to be done as media companies traditionally have. And so, it's challenging us at Futuri to make our technology more dynamic and fit different types of media-oriented users than we ever have. But that's part of what's exciting.
Yeah, that just inspired a thought. I mean, if every company today is a technology company, and every company increasingly is also a media company, I mean, where are we converging? Like, what is the where is the company of the future, and how is anyone going to differentiate?
Well, everybody will differentiate based on who they have in their community and
Communities.
Who they have in their community and what type of experience they're creating for that community. I think products technology is really just enabling a personalized experience. And so it's all about the user journey, the ultimate consumer, and the experience that they're having.
What are you most excited about right now?
Our company has been involved in machine learning and artificial intelligence for many years, well before it was kind of the hot thing of the moment with ChatGPT a couple years ago. I have seen. I'm really excited about what machine learning can do in not only the media and entertainment sector, but also around banking, around investment strategy, portfolio development. And so I'm excited about new applications of data science, and I see our teams kind of exploring and going into some really exciting new places. So that's very energizing to me. I also I know that this is an uncertain business environment, and the media industry, of course, and financial industries are always being disrupted. But I guess I just tick differently. I don't lay awake at night thinking about problems. I lay awake at night thinking about opportunities. I never feel like not never. I mean, there are days when I feel like there are daunting problems, but I pretty quickly come around to there are also towering opportunities, extraordinary opportunities. We can do things now, Jeffrey, that our parents and grandparents never dreamed would be possible with technology, and that excites me every day. I love the exploration of new ways to build tech, new solutions that we can bring to market, new ways to serve customers, and so I feel like we're living at a really unique time, and I'm grateful to be alive in 2025.
That certainly resonates. I feel a kindred way about that, and just how crazy it is to be alive at this particular point in time, as opposed to any other particular point in time.
If you think about this, it's like whether we like it or not, we are pioneers. Whether we like it or not, we're going to have to find new ways of developing our careers, of investing, of building our communities and raising our kids, and all of that. It's all going to be different. There is no instruction manual that you can buy today that tells you how to live in 2025, or how to build a business in 2025, or that tells you what's going to happen by 2030. Sam Altman had over his desk, he may still have it, a sign that says, no one knows what's going to happen next. I mean, that's just the truth. No one could prepare you. You can't buy an instruction manual for this. But what you can do is cultivate your talent, your fortitude, your resilience, your creative thinking, your problem solving mind. That can get you really far. And I feel like that's like the most exciting thing about having an entrepreneurial mindset, in 2025. For entrepreneurs who are really capital E entrepreneurs who love to problem solve, who love to go running into burning buildings, this is a great time to be here. If that scares you, then life is a little scarier. But if you can cultivate that nothing is impossible problem solver within yourself and within others, then this is a really fun time to be on planet Earth. So I'm energized, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say, yeah, I'm also notably aware of what's happening around us in every business, in every industry, in every country on the planet today. But I also think there's more opportunity than ever.
Yeah, what a time to be alive.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah. I'd love to do a brief detour on investing and Spark Trade and just the evolution and what that chapter has been like, where it came from, and where you see all that going too.
So where to start on this? Okay. One of my favorite experiences in school growing up was being in the stock club at Beechwood Middle School. We had an advisor, Mr. Overbeck, who was a beloved social studies teacher. In fact, he also owned Overbeck School of Driving, where I learned how to drive in Beechwood, Ohio. And he's retired now, but he was well loved in Beechwood, and he had a passion for the market and for understanding how companies tick and how public markets work and how capital flows. And I remember learning about this, and my my parents and grandparents were always interested in the market. Somehow there was always discussion at the dinner table about kind of what's happening today in public trading and so on. So I guess I was inclined to really fall in love with it. My grandfather was an economics major and very interested in the market. So we would talk about this a lot growing up. But I remember first learning about this at Beechwood Middle School and being in the stock trading club and just thinking like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. This is like what democracy looks like. Like flowing capital into companies is determining based on your vote of how a company is operating and what you believe the future is. You are voting every minute of the day with your dollars on where you want this country and these companies to go. And so that was my early exposure to, to this kind of passion. And I know it sounds funny to go all the way back to middle school, but I have to say thank you to Mr. Overbeck. I should send him a card or something, because he did instill something within me, and my grandfather instilled something in me that I think about today. There's almost this childlike, passion and love for America in this way. Over many years, I became interested in algorithmic trading, from basic arbitrage to complex machine learning models. It's increased in sophistication many times over the years in terms of signal processing, using alternative data sources, real-time adaptation, of your portfolio based on what's happening in the market, and until recently, most of the companies that ever had access to these types of technologies were giant hedge funds. This technology was not democratized. And yet, the quants in the market really drive a substantial amount of market movement and price action on a daily basis. So the initial mission with Spark Trade was to democratize some of this machine learning capability and make it available for everyday investors. And so we do have a large number of, I suppose you would call them retail investors, people like you and I who, are, perhaps investing and making decisions about the types of companies we're interested in and supportive of, and buying stocks on a daily basis. We do have retail investors, but we also develop custom portfolios for funds and for portfolio managers who are interested in using this type of alternative data to fuel their own portfolio management. So Spark Trade when we started Spark Trade, we started with a small group of data scientists, and we bought minute by minute trading data from from every publicly traded equity over the last 22 years. And we did a massive machine learning R&D exercise, and still this is kind of the foundation of what we do on a day-to-day basis at Spark at Spark Trade. We look at ways to combine fundamental valuation metrics with transient transient indicators for the market, and we're looking at publicly traded equities every minute of the day, every day the market is open, to determine basically what's improperly priced right now. So it's a way of using machine learning to drive a reversal strategy. That's in layman's terms. There are only a few companies today that are publicly traded that are substantially mispriced. There are a large number of companies in the market that are mispriced at a very small, very minute level. So there are lots of ways that you can run reversal strategies. But really, in order to do a reversal strategy where you're catching up on the right price, either on the long side or short side, so you believe a stock is priced too high for its fundamental value or too low for its fundamental value, you have to use machine learning to process the extraordinary volume of data that would tell you which few companies today are well positioned for a catch-up trade. And that's really what Spark Trade does. It can help a more professional portfolio manager to figure out what size of position they should have in any particular company, or to trade around a position they already have conviction on. Or we can use our algorithms and our data to build all kinds of other portfolios. And we've done I've done that for a number of different companies and portfolios, where we either have helped to build certain ETFs or strategies that are built for and managed by a professional portfolio manager, where they're trying to come up with the right theme or use AI to somehow drive their strategy. And we've even used it from an academic perspective to look at consumer intelligence and see how that fits what we're seeing in terms of fundamental and technical indicators in the market on a day-to-day basis. Where I see the market going and the kind of world of investment is that machine learning and AI-driven investments are getting more and more sophisticated, and we are integrating we're integrating fundamental analysis and research that would take rooms full of people to generate on a daily, weekly basis. And we're doing that, instantly with technology. There will be robust strategies that you can use AI to build in the coming years. There's so much. This is becoming a really exciting field. There's so much that you can do today with technology, with a solid investor mindset, a value-driven investor mindset, to bolster your earnings and to make better decisions. And so it's been a very rewarding experience to be a part of the data science team at Spark Trade.
Yeah, that is quite fascinating. For what it's worth, my interest and path to investing also originated in middle school.
Did it really?
It was the stock market game. It's a similar kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Now, how did you do in the game?
Well, by truly by chance, the monkey throwing darts at the dartboard, I did end up winning for New York State. And that experience of getting to then go to the New York Stock Exchange and see what the trading floor was like, that is kind of what inspired my whole interest in understanding business, because I wanted to understand how it was possible that I ended up winning this thing when I knew absolutely nothing about what I was doing. And so, then I started with Ben Graham, but I ended up just reading a lot about investing. And that's basically how I think about where my whole interest in business came from.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's a great for any middle school teacher or administrator watching this and hearing you say that's a great testament to amazing teachers, who put these things in our paths early in our early years. I really think that's where our passions come from, that we live out in our adulthood. It all starts there. A teacher that shows up, it's not the game itself that probably got you into it. It's all the excitement around it and the passion that was communicated. Yeah.
No, and I'm very grateful for that. So, there's a million more things I could ask you about, One that comes to mind is you mentioned kind of in passing that you are a drummer, which I feel is a humble assessment of yourself there. As from the outside, it seems you're quite actually an accomplished musician and songwriter and related set of titles within the umbrella of music. What has music taught you about entrepreneurship?
Wow. uh, well, thank you. First, thank you for listening to Rhythm and Truth. And to some of the music production that I've done. What can music teach us about entrepreneurship? There's so much. First of all, I mean, as a drummer, timing is everything.
That's good. Yep.
Finding the right cadence for growth. I'll tell you one thing I've learned about music and about life, over the years is that, when you're a musician and you're playing drums or piano or guitar, it's a very rare human. It's a very rare human who can have their mind wander into other things and still sound good. It's a real-time, playing an instrument gives you a real-time feedback loop about how tolerant you are of mind wandering. Because if you sit down at a drum set and you're really in the groove, all you're thinking about is the groove. I mean, yeah, you're also, you have situational awareness and you're connected into the rest of the band, and you're thinking about where you're going and so on. But you're certainly not thinking about lunch tomorrow and, whether something, that happened 24 hours ago or 24 years ago was the right thing or whatever. No, you are absolutely in the moment. And there is a great wisdom that comes with that from a musicianship perspective. I think what I've learned about life working in, and having the opportunity to produce other artists or, produce music as really, it started really as a hobby and something that I just love to do. I grew up playing music and loving music and, around radio and so on. But what I've learned about collaborating with other artists too is that creative people who have a lot of passion have there's a lot to be said for getting people with very different backgrounds and very different ways of thinking about things into the same song, into the same project. With a clear understanding about what they're creating, but coming from different places in life. The more different my collaborators have been, I think the more magical and unique the end result is. And that's I've experienced that around music. I've experienced that around technology and around finance. And so, I think that's probably a good life lesson that I guess came to me mostly through music, but it applies everywhere.
That was beautifully expressed. I couldn't have hoped for a better answer. Wow, that was awesome.
What about you? I mean, creativity and music, and what's your view on that and what you learn about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, I am the one in my family who is not blessed with any particular musical talent, but I have grown up with a great appreciation for music, and I feel my role is to appreciate the creativity of other people, and I think there is a role for that, or at least that that's the story that I tell myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I have thought a lot about the intersection of the artist mentality and the entrepreneur's mentality, because I think they're very similar in that the kinds of singular focus that they require and just the commitment to what it is that they're doing, often at the expense of other things, is just there's an abundance of passion that to me is gives me energy. I love spending time with artists and with entrepreneurs, and I've as a consequence of that, I've thought about what is it that is similar about those two kinds of people.
Yeah, there's definitely vision, creativity. There's a there's a relentlessness. If you're an entrepreneur, You're a professional musician. You have to be relentless in both respects. So I mean, there's that creativity and vision. I think experience in music has made me a better leader and a better collaborator and more understanding and a better listener. Frankly, you can't be a good musician and not be a good listener. You've got to listen in between the lines. You've got to listen for the full context, or you don't get it. And so, there's a lot of life lessons. I'm very passionate about music education and huge supporter of music education. My mom was a music therapist growing up, my dad, a physician. And so I grew up with a respect for people who use music in a healing way too.
Yeah. Again, beautifully said. Well, what do you feel is unsaid? Is there something that you wish I had asked you about?
Early on in this conversation, I shared with you that I personally moved to Austin, and we've been growing our Austin contingent for Futuri and Spark Trade and so on. And I want to touch on that because as an entrepreneur who started and developed several businesses in Cleveland, Ohio, I just want to share with other Cleveland entrepreneurs, or maybe somebody who's just starting a business right now, that I do believe that Cleveland is all that you make of it. And I don't want you to hear that, a certain company or our company or anybody who has diversified or grown beyond Cleveland, or even those who have started things in Cleveland and moved elsewhere, is a vote against the Cleveland market, because and Cleveland or Ohio in general as a fertile soil for entrepreneurship, because I do believe it's a really wonderful place to live. I believe that you can have access to people and to collaborators in a unique way in Cleveland that you may not have, or Columbus, that you may not have elsewhere, Dayton, et cetera. It's a really diverse state. And I believe that Ohio is a staple of the American economy, and many amazing entrepreneurs have grown and developed businesses in Ohio. And so I want to encourage you, if you're starting a business in Ohio, I want to encourage you that you're in the right place. It's all that you make it. And, the more that you can embrace the marketplace and embrace the people in Ohio who can help you to get where you need to go, the more successful you'll be. There's a great academic community, great healthcare community. There's a lot to love.
Well, it's a perfect segue to bookend the conversation here with our traditional closing question, which is about Cleveland, and it's for a hidden gem, something that other people may not know about, but perhaps they should.
Okay, well, I would say Cleveland Orchestra's Severance Music Center rehearsals.
Oh wow!
They're occasionally open to the public dress rehearsals. You have to kind of hunt for them, but if you go to Severance Music Center, look for the dress rehearsals, you can get a really sweet behind the scenes look at one of the world's best orchestras. And it's a unique and special experience. So yes, I would say Cleveland Orchestra's secret but not so secret dress rehearsals, check them out.
That's a perfect one. Well, I just want to thank you, for taking the time, for sharing your thoughts and reflections. Lee had mentioned that you had a certain wisdom beyond your years, and it's more than apparent to me that you have earned quite a lot of wisdom along the way, and are very succinct and clear in your thinking. And I appreciate, just you coming on and sharing all your reflections.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to have an open conversation together. And congratulations on what you're doing with the Ohio Fund and how you're growing, and how this podcast has been growing in popularity too.
Well, thank you.
I think it's important for Cleveland and Ohio to have really strong advocates like you, Jeffrey. So thank you.
Appreciate it. If people had anything they wanted to follow up with you about, or learn more, or otherwise, where would you direct them?
Definitely, you can find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Anstandig, or at anstandig.com. It's ANSTANDIG.com, and would love to connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
That's all for this week. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. So if you have any feedback, please send over an email to jeffrey@layoftheland.fm or find us on Twitter @podlayoftheland or @sternjefe, JEFE. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please reach out as well and let us know. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or on your preferred podcast player. Your support goes a long way to help us spread the word and continue to bring the Cleveland founders and builders we love having on the show. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. The Lay of the Land podcast was developed in collaboration with the Up Company, LLC. At the time of this recording, unless otherwise indicated, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the company which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.